Hi guys, my name is Sean. I'm a junior at MIT studying.
Quick maths.
So over the past few weeks, I've been receiving a lot of DMs. Fortunately or unfortunately, they were not the sliding kind, but rather they were from high school students asking for advice. So most of these high school seniors were asking for advice choosing colleges. But most of the time, the conversation just turned into general college advice that I feel like any college student would like to know coming in. And so this got me thinking. I was giving a lot of insightful advice to incoming high school seniors about things that I wish I had known coming into college. So why don't I make a YouTube video myself, giving all of this advice out to people for free? However, I do believe in wisdom of the crowd, and I'm only one person with one point of view. So I did some DMing myself and made a post on Facebook to all my friends who go to all different sorts of universities in the US and abroad, from community college even to elite schools like the Ivy Leagues, Harvard and MIT, for advice and things they wish they knew coming into college. So the advice that I received can be broken down into 4 categories: academics, life balance, career, and people. Also note, some of my friends didn't want to be explicitly named in this YouTube video, so I put in fake names for them. Comment below which fake names you spotted. 2 plus 2 minus 1 equals 3. Quick maths. How many ways can you rearrange Mississippi? 34,650. Prove the Riemann hypothesis. Bro, what? Academics. The only reason boomers think we go to college. So the advice I received, I felt like was fairly accurate and also definitely, I think, representative of what many of you may face in college. Take a moment and pause as you read it over yourself. So let's start off with the thing that you probably care the most about: grades. Avi introduces a concept here called grade inflation. And essentially what grade inflation does is it saves your ass. The way it does that is that it prevents you from failing a class. And usually probably 80 to 90% or even more of the class will receive at least a B. Sounds pretty nice, right? This is something to seriously consider when you might be considering things like med school, law school, careers that require you to have a high GPA, etc. An unfortunate caveat, though, to grade inflation is that it's still not necessarily easy to get an A. For example, maybe they give Bs and above to like 80-90% of the students, but only 20% get an A. Especially when you go to like a pretty competitive school, that's actually fairly difficult and you actually have to put in a decent amount of work. However, not all schools practice this and not all classes do, or not even all departments. So that's definitely something to look into maybe when you're making your decision for classes or even college. For example, I know that schools like MIT and Caltech are known for grading pretty harshly. Like, it's definitely very realistic for me to fail a class. Like, I don't benefit from grade inflation like the people up the street at Harvard do. Sad. I should take more classes at Harvard. Oh wait, that's absolutely genius. While on the topic of classes, I think Chris and Marion bring up some great points. So Chris mentions that you should be taking some classes, outside of your comfort zone. And I totally agree with that. If you look at the course catalog of, any college, essentially, you'll find that it's so much larger than what you had in high school. This gives you ample opportunity to try new things. For example, for me, I took some political science classes that I found they were quite interesting. So now I'm actually minoring in political science with a focus in policy. I think Marion brings up an interesting point about hard classes being the best. I somewhat agree and somewhat disagree with that. Personally, I feel like hard classes can be very uniquely rewarding because if you are able to do it, it's like you did it. And especially if they're really, really well taught, you can get a lot out of it. But also at the same time, there's like a cost to that. You have to spend a lot more time. Maybe you're sacrificing sleep. Maybe you're sacrificing like other aspects of your life. My personal opinion or personal advice is that if you do end up taking a hard class, like, know what you're getting yourselves into. Talk to people who've previously taken that class. Make an informed decision because this is a huge investment of your time. Next, I think Dylan's statement about your academic advisor being one of the most important people on campus is definitely very insightful. So in college, your academic advisor is essentially the person that you go over your schedule with, and he approves, amends, or declines it. Knowing him well, I think, is extremely important because he will understand your abilities and be able to give you advice. And you can probably more convincingly persuade him to let you do this, do that without friction. Personally, at MIT, I realized that they kind of just trust students. They even let most people skip prereqs if they want to. So I think it also depends on the college. But for example, when I was at the University of Mississippi or Ole Miss, they were extremely strict about stuff like this, and your academic advisor is actually fairly important. Personally, in college, for me, I wasn't that close to my academic advisor, but you definitely should know the college's system. But who I was much closer with on campus was my research advisor. So I think this leads up to Rick's point of doing research projects even if you're not going for a PhD. Personally, I'm not going for a PhD. One reason being I'm probably not smart enough to, but I thought research projects have been really good in terms of building my foundational skills. So for example, I wasn't a great coder coming into college, but through my research projects, I became much better. And I also had to present my work. So essentially, I was building both technical and soft skills, which have helped me in jobs moving forward and also just even communicating my ideas with people in general. I really hope the advice here was an A+. The day you start college, you should go outside your dorm and shout, freedom! But with freedom comes a lot of responsibility. I think Ishani and Chappie are totally right about this. You technically have more free time in college because you can't be legally forced to do anything. They can't legally force you to go to class like they could in high school. But why are you in college if you don't want to do anything? Why are you paying thousands of dollars to be here? And so you probably want to be productive, right? And I think there are a couple ways to do that. I think having a schedule is a good idea. So every day blocking out time to go to class if classes are really important or essential for you, doing homework, if you're on an athletics, sports team or dance team, you need to block out time for that. And I think what you will find after blocking out so much time is that you actually don't have as much time in college as you might have thought, which is exactly what Lon and Avi are saying. There are just so many things that I think people want to try in college because there's just like a lot more clubs, a lot more different activities, a lot more different events than you would have ever seen in high school. And you probably or maybe want to go to all of them, but you physically just don't have the time to do that. So you really have to prioritize and get your mind straight of like what I want to do and understand what your limits are. Prioritizing and spending your time on doing what things that make you the happiest or the things that are the most beneficial will go a long way in making your college experience better, which is exactly what Mansi is saying. There's a saying at my school that there are three things: academics, sleep, and social life. And you can only pick 2 out of the 3. I think that's a little bit extreme personally, because I believe it's still possible to get value out of all 3 things. But I think the idea is that it's impossible to do all 3 things extremely, extremely, extremely well. So I think that requires a lot of balancing. I think this goes into what JD is referring to. Balancing academic and social life. You have to find the right balance for yourself, depending on like what your goals are for college, depending on what makes you happy. That's something I can't tell you, but that's something that you will have to figure out. And if you don't figure this out, this could have, devastating consequences and even lifelong regrets. Personally, I've found it hard sometimes to balance academics, athletics. Come on, Chow, push it. Man, my grandma can do more push-ups than you. And having fun. Hey, she's in love with who I am. Back in high school. And finally, an over-encompassing point that Sanjana mentions that I feel like a lot of people underrate in college is taking care of your health. So when you're a freshman, you're living in a dorm, you're around a lot of people. The idea is that if one person gets sick, you're probably all gonna get sick, especially in my living situation where I live in suites. That's terrible. Another thing that, contributes to people having poor health and getting sick is just not having enough sleep. It's really easy to want to just stay up all night in college because you're talking with your friends or even sometimes you're just grinding. But at the end of the day, I believe that nothing is more important than your health. Because if you're unhealthy, you can't accomplish anything. I've taken the toll for that. For example, I think my freshman and sophomore year, there was a period of time where I was sick longer than the average person is sick with coronavirus. Obviously, the average person who survives. But that was something that I had to learn the hard way. And I really caution that for many of you going into college. After being admitted and consequently committed to college, the next big goal or the next big thing to stress about is your career, or better known as getting that bread. If you're like me going into college and having no idea what you want to do, I promise you that your college will have a huge impact on what you end up deciding to do with your career. Whether it's the people that you meet in college, the clubs that you're a part of, and the opportunities that are frankly available at your college. I think you can look at Sanjana's anecdote as a perfect example of this. She came in wanting to study computer science, but eventually pivoted towards finance because of the classes that she took. And I can personally chime in that she also had a lot of friends who were interested in finance. And similarly, that also happened to me as well, which is why I actually pursued a career in finance for about a year and a half. And if you do develop that itch or that desire to try out a career path, what's the best way to go about it? In my opinion, the best way to go about it is to try an internship or try some sort of professional experience. I would recommend doing that as early as possible because you only have such limited time in college. And if that doesn't work out for you, you have more cushion or more time to try other things. If during your freshman year, you have the opportunity to recruit or get internships, that's awesome. Go for it. I think internships are great in the sense that if you do like what you're doing, then sure, you can continue to work there if you do well, or you can strive to do well and continue to work there. But if you don't like it, it's really easy to just change paths versus, if you get a full-time job, it's a lot harder to quit after 5 months because it looks really bad on your resume. A lot of times recruiters or the next company that wants to hire you will look at that as a red flag and think that you're just hopping between companies, which is definitely not a good look and definitely not what you want as your reputation in industry. Although I'm going to be realistic, companies generally don't hire freshmen, which is hard because companies, want to hire upperclassmen who they have a higher chance of retaining. Based on what I said, I think it's pretty easy to see why internships are a great way to try new things. And you shouldn't be stuck just trying the same stuff over and over and over again, unless you know that's for you. So for example, at MIT, there's a really strong culture to go into computer science related fields or finance related fields. But there's a lot of really fulfilling careers, outside of technology, as Saad is saying. In college, I've had the chance to interact with a lot of really cool people who have been interested in policy and went to work for congressmen or were interested in nonprofits and did some medical work in Africa, or even people who are just really passionate about teaching and spend hours and hours every week teaching at a high school. Those are career paths that personally for me, I don't see that often, but it's really inspiring. It's really awesome to see these people because that there's like true passion involved here. For example, people pursue careers in finance and technology, I believe, for stability purposes or to make that to make money, right? Which is important. I'm not denying that, but I think it's a different level of respect when you are pursuing something because you're extremely passionate about it. And I think that in itself is really, really inspiring for me. And these people, I think, frankly, are just extremely woke, and I respect them a ton. And on the subject of passion, I think the quote that resonated the most with me is the one by JD. Making money is great, and maybe to a certain degree, money can buy happiness. But I think there's a cost to that. So for example, when I went into finance, I was making a good bit of money as an intern, right? Not to flex or anything, but it was nice, right? But I went to work every day just like not feeling happy, not excited about what I was doing. I didn't feel like I was making an impact in the world, and it was hard for me to tangibly see how I was generating value to the world. And to me, that I thought I was very impact driven. So even though I was, making, a good bit of money, I didn't leave work feeling fulfilled, or I wasn't looking forward to work every day. And I think that had a mental toll on me during the summer. So like after that, I took a job as an entrepreneur in residence at a stealth mode startup and also worked as a research assistant, making anywhere between 3 to 7x less money. But I felt that that was so much more fun and fulfilling. And it was something that like really, really made me think. And I think a way you can look at money or the amount of money that you're making is through this economic concept called the law of diminishing marginal utility. So the idea behind the law of diminishing marginal utility is that, let's say I'm person A and I'm making $100,000 a year and I have the opportunity to make $200,000 a year. Let's also look at person B. So person B is making $300,000 a year and has the opportunity of making $400,000. So for person A, moving up to that second job that pays $200,000 a year is a lot better than for person B to move up $100,000 to that job that pays $400,000 a year. The idea is that the value of each dollar diminishes the higher you get. And I think that's something to really take into consideration, because I don't think happiness decreases in utility the more happy you get necessarily, or as much as money does. I think for me, I feel like there's a base amount of money that I need to survive, and everything above that is just kind of a plus. And if I have to sacrifice a decent amount of happiness for that, depending on what I value my happiness at, then it's just not worth it. I'm gonna cut this video a little bit short because I've been ranting for too long. So please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you will know when part 2 comes out. Part 2 will be talking about probably the most important aspect of college, which is people. And it will also include some bonus advice that I found to be quite interesting and cool to discuss. If you liked the video or thought it was informative, please like and share. And also feel free to leave comments if you have any questions. I'll try to get back to them as soon as I can. And if you want to check out my last video on coronavirus and why the death rate is not 4%, the link should be up there. Peace.